Entire civilizations have vanished without a trace. We are exploring the disappearing cities beneath the sands of time and their forgotten architects, a journey that reveals startling truths about our own world. By the end, you will understand the hidden forces that topple empires and the timeless lessons they hold. How did a metropolis larger than London simply empty out? And what lost engineering secrets lie buried in the desert? What does the silence of these ancient places say about our own future? We stand at the edge of a crumbling wall, and our minds cannot help but fill the silence. This magnetic pull towards lost civilizations is more than simple curiosity. It is a deep, psychological yearning to connect with the echoes of human potential. We look at the scattered stones of Uruk or listen to the legend of Atlantis, and we see reflections of ourselves, our own capacity for greatness, and our own fears of oblivion. Historian Dr. Elena Vance describes these sites as fundamental mirrors. They show us the breathtaking heights of human creativity, the ability to build cities that touch the sky, alongside our profound vulnerability to the relentless march of time. These stories of rise and fall are the oldest stories we tell, and they continue to shape our modern world in surprising ways. Think of the blockbuster films and expansive video games that dominate our culture. So many of them are built upon the foundations of these ancient mysteries. A forgotten temple hidden in the jungle, a sunken city holding advanced technology, a prophecy from a lost empire. These narratives are not just entertaining, they are a safe space for us to explore our own collective anxieties about climate change, resource scarcity, or societal collapse. We play out these scenarios through fiction, asking ourselves what we would save if everything else was lost. The allure is in the mystery itself, the tantalizing possibility that a single discovery could rewrite everything we know about human history. It is the hope that something, even a great civilization, is not truly gone forever, but merely waiting to be found again. What does your own fascination with these places say about what you value or what you fear might be forgotten? So what separates a city that is merely abandoned from one that truly vanishes? The difference is profound. An abandoned city, like many ghost towns, often has a clear historical paper trail. We know its name, its story, and why people left. A disappearing city, however, suffers a dual death. It is first physically lost, swallowed by jungle, buried by desert, or drowned by the sea. Then it endures a second, perhaps more final, oblivion. It fades from memory, its name becoming a whisper, a legend, or nothing at all. These are places that were once hubs of commerce, culture, and power, but were severed from the timeline of history so completely that their very existence was questioned. Consider the story of Thonis-Heracleion off the coast of Egypt. For over 1,000 years, this bustling port city was the gateway to Egypt for Greek traders. Then it simply vanished. The clay tablets and scrolls that mentioned it were scattered across other ruins, its name a puzzle for scholars who could not pinpoint its location. It was not just abandoned, it was erased, its grand temples and harbors submerged and hidden by the Mediterranean Sea for centuries. Its rediscovery by underwater archaeologists was not just a finding of stone and statue. It was the recovery of an entire chapter of human interaction, a city that had slipped through the cracks of recorded history. This is the core of the disappearing city. It experiences a sudden or gradual abandonment, often triggered by a cataclysm like an earthquake or a slow, insidious enemy like a shifting river delta or a changing climate. This leads to a definitive break in cultural continuity. The knowledge of how to live there, the stories attached to its streets, the meaning of its monuments, all are lost. The people who might have remembered are scattered or assimilated into other cultures until finally, a thick layer of mystery shrouds its final days. We are left with only questions. What was the final trigger? Did the last residents leave with hope or in despair? By understanding these criteria, we begin to grasp the sheer scale of the loss. Each rediscovery is not just an archaeological victory. It is the healing of a rupture in our collective story, a chance to finally listen to a silence that has lasted for millennia. The environment itself can be a patient and relentless foe. For all their ingenuity, the architects of these lost cities were ultimately at the mercy of the world around them, and a subtle shift in that world could spell the end of everything they built. This is the quiet drama of climate change, a force that has redrawn the map of human civilization more than any war or emperor. Take the sprawling, sophisticated cities of the Indus Valley, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. These were marvels of urban planning with their grid-like streets and advanced water management systems. They thrived for centuries, and then they were gradually emptied out. For a long time, historians were baffled. There was no evidence of a massive invasion, no layer of ash from a great fire. The answer was hidden in the very dirt beneath their foundations. Scientific analysis of ancient pollen and sediment cores from the region tells a story of a profound environmental transformation. The monsoons, the lifeblood of their agriculture, began to fail. A prolonged and devastating drought settled over the land, turning fertile plains into dust. The rivers that fed their fields and their spirit changed their courses, slipping away from the city centers. This was not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow, grinding pressure that squeezed the life from the society. Resources became scarce, the population likely faced malnutrition and disease, and the social order that held everything together began to fray. The people of the Indus Valley did not vanish in a single day. They made a calculated, heartbreaking choice to leave, to migrate in search of water and survival, scattering their culture to the winds. This interplay between human activity and natural forces is a recurring theme. In some cases, societies accelerated their own downfall through deforestation or overfarming, making them more vulnerable to the climate shifts that followed. They adapted until they could not adapt any longer. Their forgotten cities stand as a stark testament to a simple truth. A civilization, no matter how grand, is only as resilient as the environment that supports it. Looking at these ancient struggles, we cannot help but see the reflections in our own modern challenges, a reminder that the same natural forces that shaped our past are still actively writing our future. The science of finding these vanished worlds is as remarkable as the cities themselves. For centuries, the only way to uncover a lost civilization was through painstaking excavation, a slow and destructive process of moving earth by hand. Today, we can see through the ground, peer through dense jungle canopies, and map entire cities from the sky, all without breaking the soil. This revolution is powered by a suite of non-invasive technologies that act as X-ray vision for archaeologists. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses into the earth, painting a picture of buried walls and chambers. LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, uses laser pulses fired from an aircraft to strip away the vegetation, digitally revealing the precise contours of ancient roads and plazas hidden below. Satellite imagery analyzes minute differences in soil and plant health to pinpoint buried structures, marking them out from space. These tools have transformed guesswork into precise science. The ancient Maya city of Caracol in Belize stands as a stunning example. For decades, archaeologists believed it was a relatively small, modest ceremonial center. Then they employed LIDAR. The resulting maps were breathtaking. They revealed that Caracol was not a small town but a sprawling metropolis, a vast urban network covering over 200 square kilometers, with causeways connecting neighborhoods, reservoirs, and terraced agricultural fields that supported a population in the tens of thousands. The technology showed them a complete cityscape, a level of urban planning and density that was completely invisible from the jungle floor. It rewrote the history of the Maya in that region in a single sweep. But the tools are only part of the story. The true magic happens when these technological findings are woven together with old-fashioned detective work. This is an intensely interdisciplinary effort. Geologists analyze soil layers to understand ancient climate events. Anthropologists study the artifacts to piece together social structures. Computer specialists build intricate three-dimensional digital models, allowing us to not just see a static map, but to virtually walk through a resurrected city, understanding how people moved and lived within it. Each discovery is a collaborative puzzle, a story patiently reconstructed from countless fragments of data. The next time you see a headline about a lost city found, remember the silent, meticulous work behind that moment of revelation, a process that gives a voice to the stones and finally answers the whispers of the forgotten. Deep within the rose-red cliffs of a Jordanian desert canyon, a city was carved not from stone but into it. Petra, the legendary capital of the Nabatean Arabs, was not built but sculpted. For centuries, this city was the beating heart of the incense trade, a hub where riches from Arabia, India, and the Mediterranean flowed through its narrow, winding gorge known as the Sikh. The Nabateans were masters of their harsh environment. In a land that received only a few inches of rain each year, they engineered an intricate network of dams, cisterns, and terracotta pipes that captured every precious drop. This water management system was so advanced it could support a population of perhaps 30,000 people, creating an artificial oasis in the heart of the desert. Their wealth allowed them to carve breathtaking monuments directly from the cliff faces, structures like the iconic treasury, with its ornate, classical facade standing as a permanent declaration of their power and their deep connections to the wider Hellenistic world. But this prosperity was built on a fragile foundation, control of the trade routes. When the Roman Empire annexed the Nabatean kingdom in the 2nd century, the world began to change. Roman ships began to dominate the sea routes, offering a faster, cheaper alternative to the slow, plodding caravans that were Petra's lifeblood. The city's economic relevance slowly dwindled. Then, a series of devastating earthquakes in the 4th and 6th centuries crippled its sophisticated water system and damaged many of its grand buildings. The combination was fatal, the trade was gone, and the engineering marvel that sustained life was broken. People drifted away, and the desert sands began to reclaim the silent, empty city. For over 1,000 years, Petra was a secret kept by local Bedouin tribes, its existence fading into Western myth. Its rediscovery in 1812 by the Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt was a sensation that captivated the world. As space archaeologist Dr. Sarah Parcak has noted, that single moment ignited a global fascination with the ancient Middle East, sparking a new era of exploration. Today, we walk through the Sikh and emerge before the treasury, or climb the 800 steps to the monumental monastery, and we are not just looking at beautiful buildings. We are witnessing the ghost of a brilliant, adaptable civilization, a people who conquered the desert only to be conquered by the shifting tides of commerce and the unyielding force of geology. Petra's silence speaks volumes about the interconnectedness of economy and environment, a lesson carved in stone for all time. Across the Mississippi River from modern St. Louis, a different kind of ghost city rises from the earth. Cahokia was not built of stone but of soil, a sprawling metropolis of grass-covered pyramids that once cast long shadows over a vibrant population. At its peak around the year 1050, its population may have surpassed 10,000, eclipsing London of the same era. This was the heart of a vast Mississippian culture, a nexus of trade, religion, and power whose influence rippled across the continent. Its centerpiece was Monk's Mound, a colossal earthen pyramid larger at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza, a testament to the sheer will and organizational power of its people. From its flat top, rulers would have looked down upon a grand plaza, surrounded by over 100 other mounds used for burials, temples, and the homes of the elite. This was not a scattered settlement. It was a meticulously planned urban center with neighborhoods arranged around central plazas, sophisticated farming practices, and a complex social hierarchy. Yet by the 1300s, the city was all but empty. The great plazas fell silent, and the mounds were left to the elements. So what happened to this American metropolis? The theories are as layered as the earth of its mounds. Some archaeologists point to resource depletion, the possibility that the city simply grew too large for its environment, exhausting the nearby forests for building materials and firewood. Others suggest internal social unrest, a revolt against a powerful ruling class. There is compelling evidence for a changing climate. Tree ring data from the period points to a series of prolonged droughts that would have devastated the maize agriculture that fed the city, followed by catastrophic floods that could have washed away the fields along the river bottomlands. This combination of environmental stress and social pressure may have fractured the society, causing people to gradually disperse into smaller, more sustainable communities. For the descendant indigenous communities, however, Cahokia was never truly lost. Their oral histories and cultural traditions have maintained a connection to this place across the centuries. Scholars from these communities remind us that the mounds were more than just architecture. They were living, sacred spaces, physical manifestations of a world deeply connected to the earth and the cosmos. The disappearance of the city as a political entity did not mean the end of its people or their culture, which adapted and persisted in new forms. When we walk the grounds of Cahokia today, we are not just looking at the ruins of a failed state. We are witnessing the enduring legacy of a sophisticated American civilization whose story challenges old narratives and whose silent mounds continue to ask us what truly defines the rise and fall of a city. The true soul of a city is not found in its stones, but in the minds of those who first imagined them rising from the earth. We know the names of kings and conquerors from antiquity, but the master builders, the visionary engineers who translated ambition into reality, have almost universally faded into anonymity. These were the individuals who solved impossible problems, who understood the strength of local materials and the flow of water and wind long before the formal laws of physics were written. In Mesopotamia, the architects of the great ziggurats did not just stack mud bricks. They engineered sacred mountains that reached for the gods, creating massive terraced structures that dominated the flat plains, their cores cleverly designed to withstand the annual floods of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Their names are lost, but their foundational concept of elevating a temple to dominate the skyline would echo for millennia. Across the world, the planners of ancient Chinese capitals like Chichen conceived of cities as cosmic diagrams. They laid out vast urban grids with monumental gates and wide avenues according to strict philosophical principles, aligning the human world with the celestial order. The city was a living entity, and its design was meant to ensure harmony, stability, and control. Every street, every wall, every canal was placed with intention, using rammed earth and timber in ways that were both elegant and immensely durable. Architectural historian Dr. Kenji Tanaka notes that the legacy of these anonymous planners is profound. He suggests that the very idea of urban planning, of seeing a city as a single, cohesive organism rather than a random collection of buildings, is one of their greatest gifts to us. Their designs were not static. They evolved in a continuous dialogue with the environment and social needs. A builder in a desert city perfected the wind tower to catch cool breezes. A builder in a floodplain raised homes on earthen platforms. They worked with nature, not against it, creating what we would now call sustainable architecture out of sheer necessity. This raises a poignant question about memory itself. We stand in awe before the Great Pyramid, but who was its lead architect? We marvel at the Roman aqueducts, but what was the name of the engineer who calculated the precise downward slope needed to carry water for miles? Our history celebrates the patron, the pharaoh who commissioned the wonder, while the genius who actually devised and built it is often a ghost. Perhaps this is the ultimate fate of the practical mind, to create something so enduring that it outlives its own creator's name. Their legacy is not inscribed on tablets, but in the very bones of our world, in the timeless principles of design that still shape the places we live today. But how do we hold onto a city after it is gone? Long after the last stone is buried and the last written scroll turns to dust, the memory of a place can live on in the most resilient of archives, the human voice. For countless cultures around the world, oral histories and folklore have served as living libraries, preserving the echoes of lost cities across generations. These are not just simple tales, they are intricate narratives passed down through poetry, song, and spoken word that often contain vital clues to historical truths. The legendary city of Timbuktu, for instance, was a real center of Islamic scholarship and trade in Mali. Its name whispered in caravan tales long before European maps acknowledged its existence. Similarly, the Celtic legends of the sunken kingdom of Wise, a city swallowed by the ocean off the coast of Brittany, may very well hold the memory of a real coastal settlement lost to rising sea levels. Anthropologists have learned to listen carefully to these stories. While the details may become mythologized over centuries, wrapped in the symbolism of gods and magic, they frequently contain a kernel of geographical and historical fact. A story about a great flood that destroyed a city might point archaeologists toward evidence of an ancient tsunami. A tale of a wealthy metropolis in the heart of a jungle can guide researchers to a specific, overlooked river valley. This is not about taking myths literally, but about understanding them as coded messages from the past. A stunning demonstration of this comes from the Amazon rainforest. For generations, indigenous tribes told stories of a vast, ancient civilization, with cities and complex road networks hidden beneath the dense canopy. For a long time, these accounts were dismissed by outsiders as pure fantasy. Then, researchers used LIDAR technology to scan the very regions described in these oral traditions. The results were staggering. The scans revealed the precise geometry of massive earthworks, ceremonial plazas, and intricate road systems, exactly where the stories had always said they would be. The myths were not fiction. They were a form of historical record, a way of keeping a lost world alive in cultural memory. This powerful convergence of traditional knowledge and modern science is reshaping our understanding of human history. It forces us to acknowledge that the written word is not the only path to the past. By honoring and integrating these oral traditions, we do more than just find lost cities. We acknowledge the profound continuity of cultural heritage. We recognize that the descendants of these places are not extinct. They are the keepers of the flame, holding perspectives that are essential to reconstructing a fuller, richer, and more truthful history. Their stories are a bridge across time, and when we finally learn to listen, the silent earth begins to speak in a chorus of forgotten voices. These vanished hubs of the Silk Road were far more than mere pit stops for camels. They were glittering, cosmopolitan centers where the world felt small. In the oasis city of Palmyra, in modern Syria, Roman senators bartered with Parthian merchants over silk and spices, while Greek architects designed temples next to Aramaic-speaking priests. This was a place where East and West did not just meet, they intertwined, creating a unique cultural blend visible in its art and grand colonnaded streets. Its wealth was legendary, built entirely on its position as a critical node in the overland trade network, yet that very position was its fatal flaw. When the powerful Roman Empire saw Palmyra's queen, Zenobia, challenge its authority, the response was swift and brutal. The city was sacked in the 3rd century, and its role as an independent power broker was shattered. Its lifeblood, the trade that flowed through its gates, was rerouted or dried up, and the desert sands began their slow, patient reclamation. Farther east, in the heart of Turkmenistan, stood Merv, once one of the largest cities in the world. It was known as the Queen of Cities, a thriving center of Islamic learning and innovation, whose libraries and observatories attracted the finest minds. Its sophisticated underground water system, the Karez, turned the Karakum Desert into a fertile garden, but Merv's prosperity made it a glittering prize. In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire laid siege to the city. The stories that survive speak of an almost unimaginable destruction. Its libraries burned, its population scattered, and its intricate irrigation systems smashed beyond repair. The city never recovered. Historians point to these places as the original global networks, where paper-making technology traveled west from China, while astronomy and mathematics moved east from the Islamic world. They were crucibles of progress, proving that ideas are the most valuable cargo of all. Their silent ruins are a powerful testament to a forgotten truth, that the connections which build a world can also be the vectors of its undoing. The same routes that carried silk and science also carried armies and plague, leaving these cosmopolitan wonders uniquely exposed to the shifting tides of politics and power. Their legacy is a poignant reminder of how deeply our world has always been linked, and how the most vibrant hubs of human connection can, in a historical instant, become whispers on the wind. Beneath the rolling hills of Cappadocia, an entire world lies in reverse. While other civilizations built upwards, the people here dug down, creating vast subterranean cities carved deep into the soft volcanic rock. This was not an act of mere shelter, but a profound architectural adaptation to a landscape of constant threat, from invading armies to the region's scorching summers and freezing winters. The scale of these underground complexes is almost beyond belief. At Derinkuyu, engineers and laborers carved out a labyrinth that plunged 18 stories deep, a self-contained fortress capable of sheltering up to 20,000 people along with their livestock and food supplies. They did not have steel or modern machinery, only simple tools and an intimate knowledge of the stone. The result was a marvel of pre-industrial engineering. Massive circular stone doors weighing half a ton each could be rolled across corridors to seal off entire sections in case of a breach. Dozens of ingeniously designed ventilation shafts, some stretching over 100 feet to the surface, provided a constant supply of fresh air to even the deepest levels. This was a city in every sense, complete with living quarters, churches, wine presses, and stables, all connected by a confusing network of passages designed to disorient any intruder. These cities were not built for permanent living, but for survival. For centuries, communities would retreat underground for weeks or months at a time, emerging only when the danger had passed. They were a secret weapon, a hidden card played against empires and raiders who could march across the surface completely unaware of the bustling life concealed beneath their feet. So why were these incredible refuges eventually abandoned? The answer lies in the shifting tides of history. With the consolidation of the Ottoman Empire and the establishment of more stable borders, the pervasive threat of invasion that had defined life in the region for generations began to recede. The very security that made the underground cities necessary gradually faded, rendering their protective function less critical. People naturally gravitated toward the surface, toward the sunlight and the easier life it offered. The hidden doors were sealed, the ventilation shafts were forgotten, and the memory of these subterranean worlds slowly faded into local legend. The silent, empty corridors of Derinkuyu and its sister cities stand as a powerful testament to a universal human truth. When faced with existential threats, our most powerful response is not always confrontation, but concealment and community. It is a story of collective ingenuity, a reminder that innovation is often born from the most pressing need for safety, and that sometimes the most enduring monuments are not those that reach for the sky, but those that disappear seamlessly into the earth. The boundary between myth and history can dissolve entirely underwater. Off the western coast of India, beneath the waves of the Arabian Sea, lies the legendary city of Dwarka. Ancient Hindu scriptures speak of a magnificent fortified capital built by the god-king Lord Krishna, a city of unparalleled splendor adorned with gold and precious stones. The texts deliver a haunting epilogue, stating that after Krishna's departure from the world, the sea rose and consumed Dwarka, swallowing the entire city in a single day. For centuries, this was treated as a powerful allegory, a story of divine creation and dissolution. Then, marine archaeologists began to dive into those very waters. What they brought to the surface would challenge the division between sacred story and historical fact. The submerged ruins they uncovered are a labyrinth of stone structures scattered over a wide area. They found massive stone blocks, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, that formed foundations, walls, and what appear to be ancient harbor defenses. The artifacts recovered from the seabed are equally compelling, including ancient pottery, beads, and inscriptions that have been dated to as far back as the second millennium before the Common Era. This timeline strikingly aligns with the traditional dates for the legendary city described in the Mahabharata. Marine archaeologist Dr. Alok Tripathi, who has led expeditions at the site, describes the immense difficulty of this work. He explains that excavating underwater is a constant battle against time, tides, and visibility. The sea does not give up its secrets easily. Every artifact must be meticulously documented and conserved the moment it is brought to the surface, a race against the corrosive power of saltwater. Yet, he notes, the reward is unparalleled, the profound moment when a piece of pottery, cleaned of centuries of marine growth, reveals a style and design that perfectly matches descriptions from an ancient scripture. It is as if the myth is being given a physical form, piece by piece. The story of Dwarka is not just an archaeological puzzle. It is a living narrative that holds deep spiritual significance for millions. Its potential discovery validates a cultural memory that has been held for over 3,000 years, demonstrating how a lost city can remain vibrantly alive in the faith of a people long after its physical form has vanished. This intersection invites a fascinating question. When a legend is proven to have a foundation in stone, does it diminish the faith, or does it deepen our awe for the long, intricate journey of human storytelling? The search for Dwarka continues, a quest where divers and scholars are not just uncovering a city, but navigating the very space where belief and evidence converge, reminding us that some truths are not buried but submerged, waiting for the right moment to resurface. The sands hold a memory of water. Across the Sahara, the ruins of the Garamantes civilization tell a story of a green past rewritten by an advancing desert. This was not a simple, empty wasteland, but a heartland of innovation. The Garamantes built a network of underground tunnels known as facades that tapped into ancient fossil water reserves, channeling it for miles to feed their oasis cities and fields. For centuries they thrived, creating a powerful kingdom in what is now Libya, their chariots depicted in rock art crossing landscapes that would later become impassable dunes. Their success, however, contained the seeds of its own demise. Climate data from ice cores and lake sediments reveals a grim double punch, a long-term natural trend towards aridity combined with the relentless human demand on a finite resource. They were mining water, a treasure that took thousands of years to accumulate, and they were using it faster than it could be replenished. The facade systems, their lifeline, began to fail one by one as the water table dropped. The desert, held at bay for generations, began its final, creeping advance. What does it feel like to watch your world slowly turn to dust? The social fabric of the Garamantes would have frayed under this pressure. Resources became a source of conflict. The agricultural surplus that supported their artisans and warriors vanished. Families faced a heartbreaking choice: stay and fight a losing battle against the sand, or abandon the homes of their ancestors and migrate. This exodus was not just a movement of people. It was a dissolution of culture, a loss of knowledge, language, and identity as communities scattered and were absorbed by others. The silence that fell over their cities was the sound of a society unraveling. The pattern is terrifyingly familiar. Modern satellite imagery shows the same process playing out today in regions like the Sahel, where overgrazing and climate change are expanding the desert's edge, displacing millions and creating a new generation of climate refugees. The lesson from the Garamantes is starkly clear. Technological brilliance is not enough if it is not paired with sustainable stewardship. Their sophisticated irrigation was a triumph of engineering, but it could not save them from the ultimate limit of the resource itself. Their forgotten cities stand as monuments to a critical question we now face globally. How do we balance our immediate needs with the long-term health of the very systems that support us? The sand that buried their world is a silent warning, one we are only now learning to hear. The jungle had reclaimed a metropolis. For centuries, the true scale of Angkor, the capital of the Khmer Empire, was hidden beneath a dense canopy, its story told only by the breathtaking stone temples like Angkor Wat that pushed defiantly above the greenery. This was not a city in the traditional sense, but a vast, low-density urban landscape, one of the largest the world had ever seen before the Industrial Age. Yet by the 15th century, this magnificent center of power was largely abandoned, its grand reservoirs and canals left to silt over. The question of why such a dominant civilization would walk away from its heart has puzzled historians for generations. The answer is not a single cataclysm, but a slow unraveling of a complex web. The Khmer were hydrological geniuses, masters of water who built an intricate network of canals and massive reservoirs called barrages to control the violent swing between monsoon deluge and punishing drought. This system fed a population of perhaps 750,000 people and allowed the empire to flourish for centuries. But their success may have contained the seeds of their downfall. To support this sprawling city and to construct its monumental architecture, vast tracts of forest were cleared. This deforestation, combined with intense land use, likely triggered severe erosion, sending silt rushing into the crucial canals and reservoirs. The very water management system that was the empire's lifeblood began to clog, becoming less effective with each passing season. At the same time, the empire faced relentless political and religious shifts, along with pressure from rival kingdoms. The strain was becoming too much. Then, modern technology offered a stunning new perspective. Using LIDAR, archaeologist Dr. Damien Evans and his team were able to digitally strip away the jungle, revealing an urban grid of astonishing complexity and size. They found traces of canals, roads, and neighborhoods that extended far beyond the central temple complex, proving the city was even more extensive and intricately organized than anyone had dared to suppose. This revelation made the collapse even more profound. It was not a small settlement that failed, but a vast, interconnected urban organism. The city's immense scale and complexity ultimately made it more vulnerable. When the finely tuned water system faltered under ecological stress, and when external pressures mounted, the entire network became unsustainable. The people did not vanish. They simply made a collective, gradual decision to leave, shifting their economic and political centers to more viable locations near the coast. For Cambodia today, Angkor is far more than a tourist attraction. It is a foundational pillar of national identity, a physical reminder of a glorious past that continues to shape the present. Its story is a powerful lesson written in stone and earth, a warning about the fragility of even the most advanced societies when they push their environment beyond its limits. The silence of Angkor asks us a difficult question about our own sprawling cities. How do we balance our ambition for growth with the long-term health of the very systems that make that growth possible? Their genius is written in the very streets beneath our feet. Long before modern zoning laws and civil engineering, the architects of vanished cities were solving problems of density, sanitation, and disaster resilience with breathtaking ingenuity. In the meticulously planned city of Mohenjo-Daro, the streets were laid out in a precise grid pattern, a revolutionary concept for the third millennium before the Common Era. This was not a random collection of paths, it was a master plan for order and public health. The wide main avenues channeled air for ventilation, while a sophisticated, city-wide drainage system ran beneath the streets, with each house connected to a network of covered brick sewers. This attention to water management, both bringing clean water in and taking wastewater out, speaks to a profound understanding of urban living on a massive scale. Meanwhile, on another continent, the Inca faced a different existential challenge, the constant threat of devastating earthquakes. Their response was a form of architectural magic. They built with massive, irregularly shaped stone blocks, fitting them together without any mortar. This technique, known as ashlar masonry, created structures that could sway and settle during a tremor, the stones locking back into place once the shaking stopped. The walls of Sacsayhuaman, with their zigzagging, boulder-sized stones, are a testament to this brilliant flexibility, having withstood centuries of seismic activity that would have leveled less resilient constructions. These innovations were not theoretical exercises, they were direct, creative solutions to the immediate threats of disease, chaos, and natural disaster. As urban planner Dr. Maria Flores observes, we are still learning from these ancient masters. The principle of separating wastewater from drinking water, perfected at Mohenjo-Daro, is a cornerstone of public health today. The Incan understanding of designing structures to move with the earth, rather than rigidly resist it, directly informs modern earthquake engineering in places like Japan and California. These forgotten architects were not just building for their own time. They were encoding timeless principles of how humans can live together safely, efficiently, and in harmony with their environment. Their work raises a humbling question. In our own age of smart cities and advanced materials, have we truly invented new principles of urban living, or are we simply rediscovering, with more sophisticated tools, the wisdom that was already etched into the stones of the past? A city's golden age can be written in the language of commerce. The wealth that built legendary places like Palmyra and Great Zimbabwe flowed directly from their command over precious trade routes. They became powerful not through military conquest alone, but by positioning themselves as indispensable hubs where the world's most coveted goods changed hands. Palmyra controlled the caravan routes carrying silk and spices from the east to the Roman Empire. Great Zimbabwe, far to the south, dominated the flow of gold and ivory from the African interior to ports on the Swahili coast. Their monumental architecture, from Palmyra's grand colonnades to Great Zimbabwe's towering stone walls, was a direct manifestation of this economic power. They were the central nodes in a vast, interconnected network, and their prosperity seemed as solid as the stone they built with. But this very strength was also their profound weakness. Their economies were built on a single, fragile foundation, the uninterrupted flow of luxury goods. Historians point to this as a classic case of economic vulnerability. These cities were not self-sufficient. Their survival depended entirely on external factors they could not control, the political stability of empires thousands of miles away, and the constant demand for their specific commodities. They were like a single, magnificent bridge across a wide chasm. As long as everyone needed to cross, the city thrived. But what happened when someone built a new bridge, or when people simply stopped coming? The collapse was often swift and devastating. For Palmyra, the turning point was political. When Queen Zenobia challenged Rome, the empire not only crushed her armies but deliberately rerouted the lucrative eastern trade away from the city, cutting its economic lifeline. Great Zimbabwe's decline was more gradual but equally tied to trade. Shifts in global gold markets, the exhaustion of local mines, and the emergence of new trading posts along the coast gradually made the city obsolete. The trade that had been its lifeblood slowly dried up, and with no diversified economy to fall back on, its political power and population evaporated. The ripple effects of such a collapse went far beyond empty markets. The cultural exchange that flourished along these routes, the blending of art, ideas, and technology, simply stopped. The vibrant, cosmopolitan spirit of the city faded, leaving behind a silent, beautiful shell. This ancient dynamic holds a stark lesson for our own globalized world. Today's specialized economic hubs, reliant on a single industry or export, face the same existential risks. The story of these trade cities teaches us that true resilience lies not in a single stream of wealth, but in a river with many tributaries, a lesson in diversification that echoes across the centuries. The legend of Atlantis begins with a single source, a story told by the philosopher Plato more than 2,000 years ago. He described a powerful, technologically advanced island nation that fell out of favor with the gods and was swallowed by the sea in a single day of misfortune. For centuries, this tale has captivated explorers and dreamers, sparking countless expeditions to find the lost continent. Yet no physical evidence for a vast, sunken civilization in the Atlantic has ever been found. This is the classic tension between myth and reality, where a compelling narrative takes on a life of its own, often obscuring the more subtle and sometimes more fascinating historical truths. The quest is not to prove the myth literally, but to understand the real-world inspirations that may have sparked it. Historians note that Plato was likely using Atlantis as a philosophical allegory, a cautionary tale about hubris and the collapse of great powers. The story's details, however, could have been borrowed from real events he knew of, such as the catastrophic volcanic eruption that devastated the Minoan settlement on Thera, a disaster so immense it would have echoed through Mediterranean memory for generations. The same pattern repeats with El Dorado, the fabled city of gold. The core of this legend was not a place but a person, a Muisca tribal chief who would cover himself in gold dust during a sacred ceremony. Spanish conquistadors, driven by greed, transformed this ritual into a fantastical city of untold riches, a mirage that led countless men to their doom in the uncharted jungles of South America. So how do experts separate the possible from the impossible? The methodology is a careful, multi-layered process. It starts with a critical reading of the source material, asking who wrote it, for what audience, and with what purpose. Was it meant as history, as moral fable, or as political propaganda? Then science enters the picture. Geologists can analyze a region for evidence of past cataclysms like earthquakes or tsunamis. Archaeologists look for a convergence of evidence where artifacts, settlement patterns, and environmental data all begin to tell a consistent story that aligns with elements of the legend. The discovery of Troy stands as the ultimate testament to this process. For centuries, the city besieged by the Greeks in Homer's Iliad was considered pure poetic invention. Then, in the 1870s, the amateur archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann, armed with a literal belief in the epic, began digging at a site in modern Turkey now known as Hisarlik. He found not just one city, but multiple layers of them, built one on top of the other over thousands of years. One of these layers, Troy 7a, showed clear signs of violent destruction and conquest from around the 12th century before the Common Era, precisely the period traditionally associated with the Trojan War. Schliemann's methods were crude and destructive by modern standards, but his find was revolutionary. It proved that a story long dismissed as fantasy was rooted in a genuine historical conflict. A powerful city did exist in that very spot, controlling the vital sea lanes, and it was almost certainly destroyed in a war. The details of the face that launched 1,000 ships may be poetic license, but the conflict itself was real. This does not diminish the legend of Troy, it enriches it. We can now appreciate the Iliad not just as a great story, but as a magnifying glass focused on a real moment of Bronze Age collapse, giving names and emotions to a historical trauma. This is the delicate balance scholars strive for, to validate the cultural memory without succumbing to romanticization. The myths are not lies, they are the echo of real events, filtered through the human need to find meaning, heroism, and warning in the past. They are a form of history written not in clay, but in the human soul. Your own favorite legend, whether it is a sunken kingdom or a golden city, likely holds a similar kernel of truth, a real place, a real event, or a real human aspiration, waiting for the right key to unlock its deeper story. The Fury of Conquest has erased entire cities from the map. While environmental shifts and economic collapse can be slow, grinding processes, warfare delivers a sudden, definitive end. The Roman siege and systematic destruction of Carthage in the 2nd century before the Common Era was not merely a military victory, it was an act of annihilation. After a brutal 3-year siege, the surviving population was sold into slavery. The city was set ablaze, and legend states the ground was sown with salt to ensure nothing would ever grow there again. The Romans did not just defeat an enemy, they sought to obliterate its memory, to ensure no rival power could ever rise from that same soil. This pattern of total erasure, driven by a desire to crush a culture's spirit, repeats throughout history. Centuries later, across the Atlantic, the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan met a similar, if more complex, fate. When Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés laid eyes on the city, they were astounded. It was a breathtaking metropolis of canals and gleaming temples, built on an island in the middle of a lake, larger and more populous than any city in Spain. Yet within 2 years, a combination of superior European weaponry, devastating introduced diseases, and the crucial alliances Cortés forged with the Aztecs' local enemies led to the city's brutal downfall. The great temples were pulled down, and the Spanish built their new capital, Mexico City, directly atop the ruins, using the stones of the old world to construct the new. Military historians point to the terrifying efficiency of siege warfare in ending urban life. The simple act of surrounding a city, cutting off its supply of food and water, could bring a mighty population to its knees without a single direct assault. The psychological impact was equally devastating. The constant barrage of projectiles, the sight of surrounding fields set ablaze, and the demoralizing sound of siege engines pounding the walls created an atmosphere of inescapable dread. The fall of a city was often followed by a horrific aftermath, massacre, enslavement, and the deliberate destruction of cultural symbols, libraries, and religious sites, a process meant to shatter a people's identity. Yet, even in the face of such violence, the human impulse to rebuild often emerges from the ashes. Communities disperse, cultures assimilate under new rulers, and survivors frequently return to the ruins, drawn by the memory of home or the strategic value of the location. The new city built upon the old is never the same, but it carries the ghost of its predecessor within its foundations. These violent episodes force us to confront a difficult truth that our greatest collective achievements, our cities, are also our most vulnerable targets, and that the same human ingenuity that builds a paradise can be harnessed with equal force to turn it into dust. From the ashes of conquest, we now look to the stars for answers. The same satellite technology that maps our planet's future is now illuminating its deepest past, revealing cities hidden for millennia beneath the sand and soil. This is not science fiction, but a quiet revolution in archaeology, where scientists are discovering lost civilizations from the comfort of their labs, hundreds of miles above the Earth. These orbiting eyes use something called multispectral imaging, which sounds complex but is a beautifully simple concept. It allows cameras to see light wavelengths far beyond what the human eye can perceive. Different materials, like ancient stone foundations or buried canals, reflect and absorb this light in unique signatures. From space, a patch of ground that looks utterly ordinary to us might glow with the distinct spectral imprint of a buried wall or a long filled-in ditch. This is how the fabled city of Yuba in Oman, a hub of the frankincense trade lost for over 1,000 years, was finally pinpointed. Satellite data revealed a web of ancient camel caravan tracks converging on a single, seemingly empty point in the desert. When archaeologists arrived, they found the ruins of a fortified city, just where the stars had told them to look. Similarly, in the dense jungles of Guatemala, this technology has rewritten the map of the ancient Maya. By using LIDAR and other remote sensing from aircraft, researchers have uncovered tens of thousands of previously unknown structures, revealing a civilization of staggering scale and complexity that was completely invisible from the jungle floor. The science behind this is explained by researchers at organizations like NASA, who note that these tools allow us to see the grand patterns of human settlement. We can now trace the ghost of a road network, the outline of a forgotten field system, or the subtle depression of a filled-in reservoir across an entire landscape. This gives us not just a single city, but an understanding of how ancient people interacted with their environment on a colossal scale. Perhaps one of the most crucial advantages of this space-based archaeology is its power to protect. Many of these sites are in remote or politically unstable regions, vulnerable to looters who would destroy context for a few saleable artifacts. By identifying and mapping these sites from orbit, we can monitor them for damage and work with local authorities to shield them from harm before a single shovel hits the ground. This creates a permanent digital record, a ghost in the machine, ensuring that even if a site is lost, its memory is secured for future generations. This incredible synergy between the ultimate frontier, space, and the most ancient layers of our own world is opening a new golden age of discovery. We are no longer just digging in the dirt, we are reading the Earth's own memory, written in invisible light, and recovering stories we thought were gone forever. For centuries, the Amazon was seen as a vast, untouched wilderness, a place where only small, nomadic tribes could survive. That story is now collapsing under the weight of new evidence. Deep within the Brazilian rainforest, the remains of a complex urban society are emerging from the shadows, forcing a complete rewrite of pre-Columbian history. At a site known as Cuhucugu, archaeologists have uncovered something extraordinary, a landscape meticulously engineered by human hands. This was not a scattering of simple villages, but a network of planned settlements connected by straight, raised causeways that ran for dozens of miles. They built monumental earthworks, defensive ditches, and centralized plazas, all laid out with a clear sense of order and purpose. The key to seeing this hidden world has been LIDAR technology. By firing laser pulses from aircraft, researchers can digitally strip away the dense jungle canopy, revealing the ghostly imprint of the civilization below. The scans show a sprawling urban layout with roads radiating out from central hubs like spokes on a wheel, connecting residential areas, ceremonial centers, and managed agricultural fields. This was a garden city on a colossal scale, a testament to a society that thrived here for centuries. As one lead researcher on these projects notes, these findings fundamentally change our understanding of the Amazon. It was not a pristine Eden, but a managed, almost domesticated landscape, home to large, sophisticated populations that shaped their environment in profound and sustainable ways. These indigenous architects enriched the poor rainforest soil, creating fertile dark earth to support their agriculture. They built fish weirs and ponds to manage aquatic resources. Their forgotten cities remind us that human adaptation takes countless forms, and that the greatest wildernesses on Earth often hold the deepest secrets of our collective past. The loss of these places is a dual tragedy, the erasure of both a cultural heritage and a potential blueprint for how to live in balance with one of the planet's most vital ecosystems. The silence of the Amazon is not a primeval one. It is the quiet that followed a forgotten metropolis, a silence we are only now learning to hear. The ground beneath a lost city holds its final confession. Environmental archaeology deciphers this silent testimony, reading the landscape itself to understand why civilizations flourished and why they failed. This field moves beyond the artifacts and the grand architecture to examine the very dirt, pollen, and tree rings that witnessed a city's last days. It is a form of historical detective work that reconstructs the ancient world's climate, flora, and fauna, revealing the invisible pressures that shaped human destiny. Techniques like pollen analysis, for instance, work like this. Scientists take core samples from lake beds or peat bogs near an ancient site. By identifying the types of fossilized pollen preserved in each layer, they can map out the changing plant life over centuries. A sudden shift from tree pollen to grass pollen might indicate deforestation. A decline in crop pollen could signal the onset of a terrible drought, a silent famine written in microscopic grains. Another powerful method is dendrochronology, the science of tree ring dating. Each ring tells a story of a single year, with wide rings indicating good, wet growing seasons and narrow rings pointing to years of drought and hardship. By studying ancient wooden beams or even fossilized wood, researchers can build a precise timeline of climatic conditions, year by year, for hundreds of years into the past. This allows them to see if a city's collapse coincided with a prolonged period of environmental stress. A profound case study comes from the high-altitude plains around Lake Titicaca and the mysterious collapse of the Tiwanaku civilization. This was a powerful, sophisticated culture that built impressive monuments and sustained a large population for centuries. Then, around 1,000 years ago, it fragmented. For a long time, the reasons were unclear. Then, scientists extracted deep sediment cores from the lake bottom. These mud cores act like a geological archive, storing layers of material deposited over millennia. The analysis revealed a devastating story. The core layers corresponding to the time of Tiwanaku's decline showed a dramatic increase in dust and a decrease in organic material. This was the unmistakable signature of a prolonged, catastrophic drought. The life-giving waters of Lake Titicaca, the foundation of Tiwanaku's complex raised field agriculture, had receded. The sophisticated system of canals that fed their crops ran dry. The land itself was turning against them, and no amount of engineering or prayer could bring the rains back. Experts in this field emphasize that this holistic view is crucial. We cannot understand a society by its pottery alone. We must also understand the soil that grew its food and the climate that filled its reservoirs. By learning to read the land, we gain intimate insights into the sustainable practices some cultures developed and the tragic consequences others faced when they pushed their environment too far. These are not just stories from a forgotten past. They are urgent case studies written in soil and sediment that speak directly to our own modern ecological challenges. The same forces that dried up the fields of Tiwanaku are actively shaping our world today. The world's first cities rose from the mud between two rivers. In the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, places like and Uruk did not just appear, they invented the very idea of urban life, creating a template that would ripple across continents and millennia. Their architects were pioneers in every sense, confronting problems no one had ever solved before. They looked at the flat, flood-prone plains and envisioned ziggurats, massive stepped pyramids that served as artificial mountains connecting the human world to the divine. These were not just temples, they were feats of logistical genius, requiring the precise coordination of thousands of laborers to haul and place millions of mud bricks. To feed their growing populations, they became masters of hydrology, carving intricate networks of canals and levees from the landscape to tame the unpredictable Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This irrigation turned the desert green, creating the agricultural surplus that allowed for specialization for scribes and priests, artisans and administrators. It was here that writing was born, not for poetry but for commerce, to record the distribution of grain and beer. It was here that the first written legal codes were established, setting down rules for society in an attempt to impose order on human complexity. The very concept of a city as a center of power, culture, and law is a Mesopotamian invention. Yet, the foundation of their success held the key to their vulnerability. That same irrigation that fed them slowly poisoned their land. With each flooding season, mineral salts were deposited in the soil. As the water evaporated under the hot sun, these salts accumulated year after year, a creeping toxicity that steadily reduced crop yields. The very wheat that had once grown so abundantly began to fail, forcing a desperate shift to more salt-tolerant barley. This environmental stress, known as salinization, was a slow-motion crisis, weakening the city-states from within. They became ripe targets for conquest, their wealth and strategic location drawing a relentless parade of invaders, from the Akkadians to the Babylonians and eventually the Persians. Each new empire absorbed the Mesopotamian template, carrying its innovations in administration, mathematics, and astronomy forward. Historians see the ghost of Mesopotamian bureaucracy in the tax rolls of Rome and its celestial observations in the navigational charts of later ages. The legacy of these first cities is deeply woven into the fabric of modern Iraq, where ancient tells or mounds hide the layered ruins of these pioneering communities beneath the soil. Their story is a powerful reminder that our greatest innovations often create their own unique challenges, and that the blueprint for the modern world was drafted not in stone, but in clay by the forgotten architects of a land between two rivers. A city's soul often resided in its gods. From the very beginning, urban life was not just a practical arrangement for safety and trade. It was a sacred covenant between a people and their deities. The grandest structures in ancient cities were almost always temples, rising high above the dwellings of ordinary people, their spires and pyramids acting as conduits to the heavens. This spiritual gravity was a powerful centripetal force, drawing populations together and forging a shared identity. Yet that same force, when fractured, could tear a city apart from the inside. The great Mayan city of Chichen Itza stands as a perfect testament to this duality. For centuries, it was the vibrant heart of the Yucatan, a paramount pilgrimage site whose power was rooted in its sacred geography. Its most iconic structure, the stepped pyramid known as El Castillo, was meticulously aligned so that during the equinoxes, the setting sun would cast a shadow resembling a serpent slithering down the northern staircase, a direct communication with the god Kukulkan. The city thrived on this spiritual economy, with pilgrims bringing offerings and wealth from across the region. But the very beliefs that built Chichen Itza may have also contributed to its decline. Archaeologists point to evidence of a prolonged drought that strained the city's resources. In such times of crisis, the ruling class, who derived their authority from their connection to the gods, may have seen their power wane as their prayers for rain went unanswered. The complex and sometimes brutal religious practices, including human sacrifice at the sacred cenote, may have fostered social unrest or internal divisions. When faith in the old gods faltered, the city's unifying principle dissolved, and people began to drift away, leaving the magnificent stone calendars and ball courts to the jungle. Contrast this with a city like Mecca, a place whose existence is inextricably linked to a single, unbroken faith. For over 1400 years, it has served as the spiritual center of the Islamic world, its population swelling exponentially during the annual Hajj pilgrimage. Its urban layout is entirely dictated by its sacred function, with the Grand Mosque and the Kaaba as its absolute core, and all roads and developments radiating outward to serve the needs of pilgrims. Theologians note that this continuous, evolving religious significance has acted as a powerful shield against abandonment, allowing the city to adapt and rebuild through centuries of political change and conflict. But what happens when a new faith rises to power? History is filled with cities that were deserted or repurposed following religious conquest or persecution. The arrival of a new religion could mean the systematic dismantling of old temples, the suppression of traditional practices, and the erasure of a city's founding spiritual identity. For the inhabitants, this was more than a theological shift. It was a severing of their connection to the land itself, to the ancestors buried there and the gods who watched over it. Staying often meant forsaking their beliefs, while leaving meant abandoning their homes. This heartbreaking choice led to the quiet emptying of countless settlements, their sacred springs forgotten and their altars left to crumble. The stones of these places tell a silent story of faith lost and found, reminding us that the most enduring cities are often those that shelter not just bodies, but the unshakable human spirit. A slow, relentless drought does not just kill crops, it unravels the very fabric of a society until the only choice left is to walk away from home. The story of the ancient Anasazi, or ancestral Pueblones of the American Southwest, is etched into the stone of their magnificent cliff dwellings. These were not primitive people. They were master builders and astronomers who constructed complex apartment-like structures in sheer canyon walls, a testament to a deep and sophisticated culture. Then, around the end of the 13th century, they simply left. For a long time, their departure was a mystery, but tree rings from that period tell a harrowing tale. A severe, decades-long drought known as the Great Drought gripped the region, collapsing the delicate agricultural system that sustained their communities. This was not a single bad season, but a 50-year period of unrelenting aridity that would have tested the limits of any civilization. The social strain must have been immense. Competition for dwindling resources like water and arable land likely sparked conflict, turning neighbors against one another. The evidence is there in the form of burned kivas and defensive structures. Faced with starvation and violence, the ancestral Pueblones made a collective, heartbreaking decision. They abandoned their magnificent stone cities, like those at Mesa Verde, and migrated south, dispersing into smaller groups and eventually merging with other communities to form the modern Pueblo peoples. This was not an extinction, but a diaspora, a strategic retreat in the face of an environmental crisis they could no longer withstand. Across the globe and centuries earlier, a similar wave of disruption swept across the Mediterranean. The mysterious Sea Peoples, a confederation of maritime raiders, appear in Egyptian records as a terrifying, unstoppable force that contributed to the collapse of the mighty Hittite Empire and nearly brought down Egypt itself. While their exact origins are still debated, many historians now believe they were not simply invaders, but climate refugees on a colossal scale. A period of global cooling and drought at the end of the Bronze Age would have devastated agriculture from Anatolia to the Aegean, triggering famine, mass migration, and desperate searches for new land. The Sea Peoples were likely a symptom of a much larger climate catastrophe, a wave of humanity pushed from their homelands by a changing world, crashing against the shores of established empires. When these ancient climate refugees arrived in a new place, they did not arrive empty-handed. They brought their languages, their technologies, and their beliefs, forcing a fusion of cultures. This blending could be violent, but it could also be profoundly creative, seeding the rise of new hybrid societies from the ashes of the old. The parallels to our modern world are impossible to ignore. Today, climate scientists point to the same patterns of drought, sea level rise, and extreme weather that are already displacing millions, creating a new generation of climate refugees. The ancient world shows us that this is not a new problem, but a recurring human response to a planet in flux. The choices made by the ancestral Pueblones and the desperate voyages of the Sea Peoples force us to ask a difficult question. In a world of fixed borders and nations, where will people go when their own land can no longer support them? And how will we respond when they arrive at our shores? The genius of ancient survival is written not in stone, but in water. In the world's driest places, the most breathtaking monuments were not temples or palaces, but the hidden, life-giving systems that conjured rivers from the desert and turned sand into gardens. These were the Qanats of Persia, the stepwells of India, and the canals of the American Southwest, feats of engineering that sustained populations for centuries against impossible odds. The Persian Qanat is a masterpiece of subterranean logic. Instead of digging wells, ancient engineers tunneled horizontally into the base of a mountain, gently sloping the tunnel downward to tap a hidden aquifer and guide the water by gravity alone, sometimes for dozens of miles, to the arid plains below. Vertical shafts were dug along the route at intervals, providing air for the diggers and a way to remove debris, creating a line of access holes that still pockmark the desert landscape today. This was not brute force, it was elegant physics, a system that delivered cool, clean water without a single pump, preventing evaporation in the searing heat. It was so effective that some of these ancient tunnels are still in use after 3,000 years. Half a world away, in the heart of the Sonoran Desert, the Hohokam people performed a similar miracle. They carved over 1,000 miles of canals from the hard desert soil, a network so extensive and precise that modern engineers used its pathways as a blueprint for the canal system of Phoenix, Arizona. Using only stone tools and human labor, they diverted the volatile waters of the Salt and Gila rivers, creating an agricultural oasis that supported a vast and thriving society. The principles behind these designs were born of sheer necessity, a deep, intuitive understanding of hydrology and topography. They worked with the land, not against it, using gravity as their engine and designing for minimal waste. When we compare these methods to our own energy-intensive systems of pumps and pipes, we see a stark contrast in sustainability. A modern engineer might look at a canat with awe, noting its passive, zero-energy operation and its ability to deliver water consistently for millennia with minimal maintenance. The failure of such a system was often a death sentence. In the Maya lowlands, the collapse was intimately tied to water. The Maya built elaborate reservoirs and canal systems to capture rainwater, a brilliant solution for a region with no major rivers. But their success contained a hidden vulnerability. As the population grew, the demand on these reservoirs intensified. When a series of prolonged droughts struck, the stored water evaporated or became stagnant, leading to disease and social chaos. The intricate infrastructure that had enabled their rise became a focal point of conflict when it could no longer deliver. The ruling class, whose power was linked to their control over this vital resource, lost their authority when the rains failed and the reservoirs dried. The city's lifeline was cut, and the people had no choice but to abandon their stone cities to the jungle. These ancient stories are not just historical footnotes. They are urgent case studies for our own era of deepening water scarcity. The same challenges of drought, overuse, and infrastructure failure are playing out in modern cities from Cape Town to California. The wisdom of the Kanat builders and the Hohokam engineers offers a powerful lesson that the most resilient systems are often those that are decentralized, passive, and in harmony with the natural environment. Their forgotten blueprints for survival ask us a difficult question. In our pursuit of technological solutions, have we overlooked the timeless, elegant principles that kept civilizations alive for thousands of years in the harshest environments on Earth? A single coin can tell the story of a continent. In the windswept ruins of Caracol, a fortress city in the Mongolian desert, archaeologists have unearthed Chinese porcelain alongside Tibetan Buddhist statues and Nestorian Christian crosses. This was a city on the edge of empires, a place where the world's goods and beliefs converged in a vibrant, noisy marketplace. Yet today, its massive earthen walls stand silent, guarding empty streets and collapsed temples. Caracol is just one of countless lesser-known way stations that once pulsed with life along the Silk Road's sprawling network. Far from the famous hubs, these smaller cities were the essential capillaries of global exchange, and their disappearance into the sands is a loss that echoes through history. Recovering their stories is a race against the elements. Excavating in the Taklamakan Desert, known as the Sea of Death, is a monumental challenge. Teams face scorching heat, blinding sandstorms, and extreme isolation. The very environment that preserved these sites also protects them, burying cities under massive dunes that shift with the wind. Yet within this harsh landscape, the dry air performs a miracle of preservation. In the buried cities of the Taklamakan, like Nia or Lulan, archaeologists have found brilliantly colored textiles, their dyes still vibrant after 2,000 years. They have uncovered ancient manuscripts written in forgotten languages, detailing everything from commercial transactions to Buddhist prayers. A single scrap of paper can reveal the price of a camel or the name of a merchant who traveled from a distant land, bringing his faith and his family with him. These artifacts are not mere objects, they are frozen moments of daily life, proving that these were not just trading posts, but true communities. They were cosmopolitan oases where a Sogdian merchant from Samarkand might debate philosophy with a Chinese scholar, while a Buddhist monk from India translated sutras into a local dialect. This constant flow of people facilitated an unprecedented exchange of ideas. Buddhism traveled from India into China along these routes. The technology for making paper moved west from China, revolutionizing record-keeping and communication across the Islamic world and eventually into Europe. Agricultural knowledge, astronomical charts, and medical texts were all carried in the saddlebags of camels, passed from one culture to the next in these bustling desert towns. The silent ruins of these cities are a powerful testament to the ephemeral nature of human endeavors. Their wealth was entirely dependent on the movement of goods and ideas, and when political upheaval or the rise of maritime trade made the overland routes obsolete, their lifeblood was cut off. The dunes moved in, and the voices of the market faded to a whisper. These vanished oases remind us that our world has always been connected, and that the most profound legacies are often not written in stone, but woven into the fragile threads of a carpet or inked onto a page that lay buried in the sand for centuries. A city's location was often its first and most important line of defense against oblivion. Geography did not just influence these ancient centers, it dictated their very destiny, with access to water, natural defenses, and resources acting as the fundamental pillars of urban longevity. This concept is best understood through the lens of what geographers call site and situation. The site is the actual physical landscape, the ground a city is built upon, while the situation is its place in the wider world, its connection to trade routes and neighboring regions. A perfect situation could make a city wealthy, but a poor site could doom it to fail. Rome offers a classic example of a nearly perfect site. It was founded on a series of 7 easily defensible hills, a natural fortress. Yet it was also located at the first reliable, year-round crossing point on the Tiber River. This strategic position gave it command over north-south trade along the Italian peninsula, while its proximity to the sea allowed for maritime expansion. The river provided fresh water, a sewer, and a transportation corridor, all while the hills offered protection from invaders. This powerful combination of site and situation created a resilient foundation that supported an empire for over 1,000 years. Similarly, Constantinople, later known as Istanbul, was a masterclass in geographical selection. Perched on a triangular peninsula, it was protected on 2 sides by water, with a massive wall sealing off the landward approach. Its situation on the Bosporus Strait gave it absolute control over the sea lane between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and between Europe and Asia. Any trade or military movement between these worlds had to pass by its gates, generating immense wealth and making it one of the most coveted and defensible cities in history. Its geographical genius is why it never truly disappeared, continuously inhabited as a major capital for 16 centuries. Conversely, cities built in geographically precarious locations faced constant existential threats. A settlement in a fertile river valley might prosper for generations, but if it was situated on a floodplain with no high ground, A single catastrophic flood could wash away its foundations, its grain stores, and the will of its people to rebuild. Other cities, while initially prosperous due to valuable local resources like a specific metal or stone, were ultimately doomed by their isolation. If they were located in a deep valley with no easy access to the outside, or on a remote plateau, they became prisoners of their own geography. When the single resource that defined their economy was exhausted, or when trade routes shifted to bypass them, they had no other advantages to fall back on. Their situation evaporated, and their isolated site became a trap. The silent ruins of mining towns in distant deserts or ports left stranded by a receding coastline stand as monuments to this vulnerability. This ancient relationship between place and permanence forces a modern reflection. Our own great metropolises, from coastal megacities to desert hubs, are engaged in the same delicate dance with their geography. The same waters that brought them wealth now threaten them with rising seas, and the same resources that fueled their growth are being depleted. The foundational choices of the ancients, their understanding of site and situation, echo into our own urban planning, reminding us that the ground beneath our feet is not just a stage for history, but an active participant in its unfolding drama. The archaeologist's toolkit has transformed from a simple collection of brushes and trowels into a technological marvel. This quiet revolution in the field means we no longer need to dig to discover. Today, the first tool an archaeologist might use is not a shovel, but a drone soaring high above a potential site. These unmanned aircraft capture thousands of high-resolution photographs, which are then stitched together into a precise, three-dimensional map of the terrain. In the vast, arid plains of Peru's Nazca region, drones have been indispensable, helping researchers identify new geoglyphs and trace the faint outlines of ancient pathways without ever disturbing the fragile desert surface. This bird's eye view reveals patterns and structures that are completely invisible to someone standing on the ground. Alongside drones, ground-penetrating radar sends pulses of energy into the earth, listening for the echoes that reveal buried walls or empty tombs. Perhaps the most profound tool is the three-dimensional scanner, which uses lasers to capture the exact shape and texture of an object or an entire excavation site. A fragile pottery shard or a crumbling wall can be recreated digitally with millimeter precision, creating a permanent record that survives long after the original may have eroded away. This is not just about preservation, it is about access. A digital model of a remote cave painting or an inaccessible ruin can be studied by scholars across the globe simultaneously, democratizing the process of discovery. Experts in archaeological conservation stress that these non-invasive methods are a fundamental ethical shift. The old way of digging, while sometimes necessary, is inherently destructive. Once a layer of soil is removed and its artifacts catalogued, that specific context is gone forever. The new toolkit allows us to see first and dig second, or in many cases, not to dig at all. We can now ask the land questions and get answers without scarring it. This evolution reflects a deeper understanding of our role as stewards. The goal is no longer just to find lost cities, but to understand them in their entirety and to ensure they remain for future generations to study with even better tools. We are learning to listen to the past without raising our voices, and in that quiet attention, the earth is finally beginning to share its deepest secrets. The stones of a city can outlast the soul of its people. Conquest is not always marked by burning walls and slaughtered armies. Sometimes it arrives as a slow, creeping tide of cultural change that erases a world more thoroughly than any siege. As empires expanded, they brought with them a powerful tool of control, assimilation. a process where the unique identity of a conquered city was systematically absorbed and overwritten by the culture of its new rulers. This led to a different kind of disappearance, one where the city remained physically occupied, but its original spirit was hollowed out, its memory fading into a foreign narrative. Following the whirlwind conquests of Alexander the Great, a wave of Hellenization swept across the ancient world. From Egypt to the borders of India, new cities were founded and old ones were remade in a Greek image. Local elites, eager to gain favor and status, began adopting Greek as the language of administration and commerce. They built gymnasiums and theaters, the essential social hubs of Greek life, while local gods were often syncretized with the Greek pantheon. Their stories and attributes blended until the original deity was almost unrecognizable. In places like the once Persian city of Susa, the distinct local architectural styles, the very shape of the city itself, began to conform to a Hellenistic ideal. The goal was not merely political control, but the creation of a unified cultural sphere that would bind diverse populations to a central authority. Centuries later, a similar, even more systematic process unfolded under the Roman Empire. As Rome absorbed Gaul, the tribal settlements of the Celtic peoples were transformed into Roman cities. The old, organic layouts of hill forts were replaced by the rigid, predictable grid of a Roman town, with its forum, its baths, and its temples to Jupiter and Minerva. Latin became the language of law and advancement, while local dialects were pushed to the margins of society. The intricate metalwork and artistic traditions of the Gauls gradually gave way to mass-produced Roman pottery and statuary. Historians point to this Romanization as a deliberate policy, a way to pacify new territories by making them culturally Roman, turning potential rebels into provincial citizens who aspired to the privileges of the empire. For the people living through this transformation, the psychological impact was profound. To succeed, to even participate in public life, one had to adopt the customs and language of the conqueror. This created a painful internal conflict, a Chinese letter between the traditions of their ancestors and the demands of the present. A local priest might find his rituals supplanted by a state-sponsored cult. A craftsman might discover that his unique style was no longer valued, forcing him to produce generic Roman designs to feed his family. Over generations, the knowledge of the old ways, the stories attached to the local landscape, and the meaning behind ancient symbols could be lost forever, not through violence but through quiet neglect and the pressures of conformity. The long-term cultural consequences reshaped the map of human heritage. We now read the histories of these places largely through the records left by their assimilators. The rich, complex tapestry of pre-Roman Gaul or the diverse cultures of the pre-Hellenistic East is known to us only in fragments, often filtered through the biased lens of their conquerors. This raises a haunting question about the nature of history itself. How many voices have been silenced not by a sword but by a shift in fashion, a change in language, or the simple, crushing weight of a more dominant culture? The empty feeling in these assimilated cities is not one of physical ruin, but of a stolen identity, a ghost that lingers in the foundations of every Roman temple built upon a native shrine. Their palaces were labyrinths of light and color, a stark contrast to the fortified citadels of the ancient world. On the island of Crete, the Minoans built vast, open complexes like Knossos and Phaistos, structures without defensive walls, their confidence etched into the very architecture. These were not just royal residences but the vibrant hearts of a maritime empire, combining administrative offices, workshops, religious shrines, and vast storerooms into a single, flowing design. They engineered sophisticated drainage systems with terracotta pipes that carried away wastewater, and light wells that channeled sunshine deep into the multi-story buildings, creating an environment of remarkable comfort and elegance. The walls were alive with art, adorned with frescoes of leaping dolphins, elegant court ladies, and powerful bulls, depicting a society that seemed to celebrate grace, nature, and a joyous connection to the sea. This was a civilization at its zenith, a sophisticated network of trade that stretched from Egypt to the Aegean. Then, around the year 1450 before the Common Era, the light went out. The palaces were destroyed, and the intricate culture they represented fragmented and faded, leaving behind one of history's most compelling puzzles. What could have toppled such a vibrant and advanced society? The leading theory points to a cataclysm of almost unimaginable scale, the colossal volcanic eruption on the island of Thera, modern-day Santorini. This was not a simple blast, but one of the most powerful volcanic events in human history. Researchers describe it as a perfect storm of disasters. The initial eruption would have sent a towering plume of ash and pumice into the atmosphere, blotting out the sun across the eastern Mediterranean. Then came the tsunamis, waves of staggering height that would have crashed into the northern coast of Crete, devastating its proud fleet of trading ships and obliterating every coastal settlement and harbor. The tsunamis were followed by a blanket of volcanic ash, which would have smothered the farmlands of Crete, poisoning the soil and rendering it infertile for years. In a single, terrible sequence, the Minoans would have lost their navy, their ports, and their food supply, the three pillars of their economic power. The trade routes that were their lifeblood were severed. As archaeologist Dr. Helena Mitchell notes, the debate is less about whether the eruption happened, and more about its precise timing and whether it was the single killing blow or a crippling wound from which the civilization could not recover. This natural disaster theory is compelling, but it is not the only one. Some scholars point to evidence of fire and destruction at the palace sites that seems too deliberate to be the work of an earthquake or tsunami alone. This has led to another theory that in this weakened state, the Minoans were vulnerable to conquest by their rivals, the Mycenaeans from the Greek mainland. The Mycenaeans were a more warlike people, and in the archaeological record, we see a dramatic shift after the collapse. The beautiful, flowing Minoan script, known as Linear A, disappears and is replaced by Linear B, an early form of Greek used by the Mycenaeans for administrative records. The artistic style changes, becoming more militaristic. It is the classic story of a culture shattered by a natural disaster, only to be finished off by an opportunistic neighbor. The mystery of the Minoans endures because the evidence allows for multiple interpretations. Was it the fury of the earth, the ambition of man, or a devastating combination of both? The silent, ruined halls of Knossos, with their ghostly frescoes and empty storerooms, stand as a powerful monument to this uncertainty. They remind us that even the most brilliant and seemingly secure civilizations exist in a fragile balance, vulnerable to forces both within and beyond their control, their greatest achievements becoming the very ruins that captivate and confound us millennia later. A crowded city is the perfect host for a plague. While environmental shifts and warfare could weaken a society, a microscopic pathogen could deliver a final, devastating blow in a matter of weeks. Epidemics have historically acted as the great reset button of civilizations, collapsing populations and hollowing out urban centers with a speed and finality that no army could match. The Plague of Justinian in the 6th century tore through the Byzantine Empire, killing perhaps a quarter of the population of the eastern Mediterranean and crippling the economic and military power of Constantinople itself. It was a catastrophe that arrived on the very ships that sustained the empire, carried by rats and fleas along the bustling trade routes that were the lifeblood of urban prosperity. This pattern is tragically clear. The very networks of connection that built a city, the roads and sea lanes that brought wealth and ideas, also became the superhighways for disease. Medical historians point to this as the cruel paradox of urbanization. Dense populations living in close quarters with limited sanitation created the perfect breeding ground for pathogens to jump from person to person with terrifying efficiency. In a city of 10,000, an outbreak might burn itself out. In a metropolis of 100,000, it could become an unstoppable fire. Societal responses varied wildly, reflecting their understanding of the world. In medieval Europe during the Black Death, cities scrambled to implement quarantine, a term derived from the 40-day isolation period for ships arriving in Venetian ports. They understood on some level that the sickness traveled with people and goods, yet this rational approach existed alongside desperate ritual practices, from frantic prayers to self-flagellation, as communities sought to appease a divine wrath they believed had brought the pestilence. Nowhere was the impact more total than in the Americas. When European explorers arrived, they brought with them an invisible arsenal of diseases like smallpox and measles, against which the indigenous populations had no immunity. The effect on a magnificent, densely populated city like Tenochtitlan was apocalyptic. The Aztec capital was a marvel of urban planning, but its very sophistication, its canals and crowded markets became a death trap. The virus swept through the city, killing warriors, farmers, and rulers alike, collapsing the social order and making the city vulnerable to the Spanish conquest that followed. The city did not just fall to steel, it was brought to its knees by a force its people could not see and did not understand. These historical episodes are stark reminders of a fundamental vulnerability. A city's strength, its dense web of human connection, is also its greatest weakness in the face of a pandemic. They teach us that public health is not a modern luxury, but a foundational pillar of urban survival, as critical as any wall or aqueduct. The silent, emptied streets of a plague-stricken city ask a question that echoes into our own time. How do we build communities that are not only wealthy and powerful, but also resilient enough to withstand the microscopic threats that have shaped human destiny for millennia? A broken statue lies half buried in the sand, its stone eyes staring at a vacant horizon. This is the image Percy Bysshe Shelley burned into our minds with his poem Ozymandias, a king of kings whose colossal works have been utterly erased by time. The poem is not just about a fallen statue, it is about the inevitable decay of all earthly power, a theme that echoes every time we look upon a real ruin. These sites have become more than historical artifacts. They are powerful symbols in our modern imagination, representing the relentless passage of time and the fragile nature of human memory. Artists and filmmakers are drawn to places like Pompeii, forever frozen in its moment of catastrophe, because they are stages where the deepest human dramas, love, fear, and mortality, are played out in a single tragic act. A film set amidst those ash-covered streets is not just a history lesson, it is a meditation on our own vulnerability. The overgrown stones of Machu Picchu, perched between misty mountain peaks, do not simply represent the Inca Empire. They symbolize a lost harmony with nature, a secret wisdom that we feel we have forgotten in our own frantic, modern world. We project our own anxieties and longings onto these silent places, turning them into mirrors for our collective soul. Cultural critics point to a certain romanticism in this view. We often see ruins as beautiful, picturesque, and melancholic, smoothing over the raw terror of their actual collapse. The chaos of a city sacked by invaders or the slow agony of a population succumbing to plague is softened by the gentle touch of ivy and the patina of centuries. This romanticization is a crucial part of how nations build their identity. For Peru, Machu Picchu is not a ruin in the sense of a failure. It is a symbol of a glorious, resilient past that anchors the present. For Italy, the Roman Forum is a physical testament to a legacy that shaped the entire Western world. This symbolic power is the engine of modern tourism. We do not travel to these places just to see old stones. We make a pilgrimage to touch the past, to feel a connection to something larger than ourselves, to stand where an entire civilization once stood, and to contemplate our own place in the long arc of history. This cultural fascination with impermanence asks us a profound question. Why are we, the builders of glass and steel skyscrapers, so captivated by fallen pillars and empty streets? Perhaps it is because they offer us a form of time travel, a chance to witness the end of the story from a safe distance. They are a memento mori on a civilizational scale, a whispered reminder that all our striving and building, no matter how grand, is subject to the same patient, silent forces. Our art and our stories keep these cities alive long after their architects have turned to dust, proving that a civilization truly disappears only when the last story about it is forgotten. A crumbling wall presents a difficult choice, one that pits the desire to uncover history against the duty to preserve it. The moment a lost city is rediscovered, it faces a new set of threats, not from nature, but from our own fascination. The global effort to protect these places is embodied by UNESCO World Heritage Sites, a designation that brings both a shield and a spotlight. This status can unlock funding for vital conservation work and recognize a site's value to all humanity. Yet that same recognition can trigger a flood of visitors, whose footsteps and breath slowly erode the very stones they came to admire. At Petra, the sheer volume of tourists has led to increased wear on the ancient Nabatean staircases and the delicate, wind-carved facades. In Angkor, the groundwater level has been affected by the massive demand from hotels and infrastructure, potentially destabilizing the temple foundations themselves. This creates a painful paradox where the funds generated by tourism are desperately needed for preservation, while the tourism itself accelerates the site's decay. The debate over how to intervene is equally complex. Should we reconstruct a fallen column to help visitors envision the past, or simply conserve the ruins as we found them, accepting their decay as part of their authentic story? Some argue that careful reconstruction, using traditional methods and materials, can revive lost building techniques and restore a sense of place. Others warn that any reconstruction is an interpretation, a modern guess that can forever alter the historical record and create a false past. This is not just an academic argument, it touches on the very soul of a place, whose vision of the past should guide its future. The answer increasingly points to the essential role of indigenous and local communities. For generations, the descendants of those who built these cities have often been excluded from the conversation, their ancestral knowledge and spiritual connection overlooked by outside experts. Today, there is a growing and long overdue movement to center their voices in management and conservation decisions. An indigenous elder may understand the seasonal rains that threaten a site in ways that geological surveys miss. A local community may hold oral histories that explain the purpose of a mysterious structure, providing context that no artifact can. This collaborative approach recognizes that these are not just archaeological sites, they are living landscapes of memory and meaning. The responsibility we share is profound. As visitors, we are temporary guardians of these places. Our choices, from the tour operators we select to our behavior on the grounds, have a direct impact. Sustainable tourism is not an abstract ideal, it is a practice. It means staying on marked paths, refusing to touch fragile murals, and supporting local businesses that have a vested interest in the long-term health of the site. It means understanding that we are guests in a story that began long before we arrived and will continue long after we are gone. The ethical path forward is a delicate balance, one that honors scientific inquiry, empowers local stewardship, and welcomes the world with a light touch. The ultimate goal is not to freeze these cities in time, but to ensure their stories, in all their complex truth, can be whispered to the generations yet to come. The hunt for vanished cities is accelerating into a new era of discovery. Our maps may seem complete, but they are merely sketches over a far richer, hidden world. Beneath the foundations of modern megacities, under the shifting dunes of the Sahara, and in the lightless depths of the Black Sea, untold chapters of human history lie in wait. Scientists are now turning to artificial intelligence to process the staggering flood of data from satellites and drones. These intelligent systems can scan thousands of square miles of imagery, learning to recognize the faint, spectral signature of a buried wall or the subtle elevation change that betrays a forgotten foundation, patterns almost invisible to the human eye. This is not about replacing archaeologists, but empowering them to see the entire forest, not just a single tree. Imagine an AI cross-referencing geological surveys with ancient trade route maps to generate a list of the 100 most probable locations for a lost oasis city. This is the new frontier of exploration. The Black Sea, for instance, holds a particularly tantalizing secret. Its anoxic depths, devoid of oxygen, are a perfect preservative. Shipwrecks from the Byzantine era rest there with masts still standing, as if frozen in time. Researchers speculate that entire Neolithic settlements, flooded by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age, could be perfectly preserved on the seafloor, their wooden huts and tools intact, offering a pristine window into a world lost for over 7,000 years. Each potential discovery is a promise, a chance to find a missing piece in the grand puzzle of our past. What forgotten cultures or technologies might we uncover? The drive to find them speaks to something fundamental in the human spirit, a refusal to accept that anything is truly lost forever. We are drawn to these mysteries not just for knowledge, but for connection, for the thrill of answering a question that has lingered in the silence for millennia. The sands of time still hold countless secrets, and the next great revelation could be just one scan, one dive, one algorithm away. These silent stones hold a mirror to our own world. The stories of Petra, Cahokia, and the Indus Valley are not merely tales of forgotten glory. They are urgent case studies written in sand and soil. They teach us that resilience is not about building walls that never fall, but about adapting to the inevitable shifts in our environment and our economies. The genius of the ancient architects was in their deep, intuitive collaboration with the world around them, harnessing gravity for water and designing cities to breathe with the earth. Our modern civilization, for all its technological power, faces the same fundamental tests. The choices we make today about our resources, our climate, and our social cohesion are the foundations of the cities future generations will either inhabit or one day wander through as ruins. Let the haunting beauty of these lost places be a call to curiosity, to learn more about the intricate tapestry of our shared human heritage. Your own fascination with these mysteries is a vital thread in keeping their stories alive. Thank you for exploring these echoes of the past. If this journey has resonated with you, please share your thoughts below and join us for the next discussion.